Good morning. It's great to see all your faces. We are here for graduation day for Cohort 19 of the UC Venture Lab Pre-Accelerator program, which a lot of you are very familiar with because some of you are entrepreneurs in residence who volunteer your time week after week with our teams, which we appreciate more than you can know. And we also have 12 teams here this morning who are going to present to you their ideas that they've been working on over our 8-week program. Each one of them gets 5 minutes to share their idea with you, which is not much time. They've been practicing, getting it down. And after those 5 minutes, then you can have Q&A. I'm Elizabeth Wetzel. I am the program manager for the Venture Lab. I manage the Pre-Accelerator program with a lot of help from a lot of the people that you see in this room. And I'm really excited to be here for Cohort 19. We've been doing this for a little more than 4 years now, and we've had probably 230 teams come through our Pre-Accelerator in that time. And what we hope is that it helps people figure out whether this is the idea that they want to pursue to actually making it into a startup. Our program is really valuable, even if this idea isn't the one that they decide they want to put all of their eggs into that basket, because a lot of times it gets people thinking about the process, what makes a good startup. And we've had teams come back through a year later with a second idea that they've actually gone on to make something of. And so I just want to say thanks to all the teams who have dedicated this last 8 weeks. And I know it's scary to share something you're really passionate about, that's, you know, your brainchild. And then to come here today for all these lovely people to judge you. But it's a really friendly room. We're all really supportive and we want the best for you. And so I just want to go ahead and get started. All right. So the first group that's going to come up is actually a single person. Let me turn this on. Ethan Crimmins with 3D Weather. If you want to come on up here, I'll hand you the remote and you can go ahead and get started. Thank you. And just introduce yourself.
Good morning. I'm Ethan Crimmins. Weather affects all of aviation, and in some cases, which occur about twice per month, maybe once per week, it leads to a fatality. The unmanned aircraft fleet is already growing exponentially and is going to far surpass the manned aircraft fleet size. And if the accident rate stays the same, it's going to be astronomical. The reason this is happening is that U.S. meteorological infrastructure only covers 3% of the U.S. It was built for airports where aircraft depart and land and the high altitudes they cruise at, but nowhere else. The competition is building very complex ATM management programs that are new to the industry and difficult for the novice controllers in the states to manage. And in a way, this analogy, these guys are building Ferraris, very complex machines, and they're trying to sell them to student drivers. So why not start with the simple solution? What we're introducing here is a unmanned aircraft traffic management system that is very simple. It provides the 3 critical criteria for FAA regulatory compliance, which is vehicle to weather deconfliction, vehicle to ground deconfliction, vehicle to vehicle deconfliction, all in a visual graphical format with a lot, without the clutter that the competitors have. This is a screenshot of that visual output. If you know the game Minecraft, this is basically using that same type of optimization, but for the atmosphere. The technology is live, it's working, it's mobile, and it's available nationally. In addition to addressing the FAA regulatory criteria, it does have another big benefit, and that's it allows states to foster and grow the unmanned aircraft industry. So FedEx, UPS, Amazon, a lot of these logistics companies are moving in this direction, and this technology aids them. We're very lucky. I'm very lucky. Ohio is leading the nation with setting this trend. This is the home of the Wright brothers. We owe it to the not only the nation, but also the world to set an example and take the lead with this. And what you're looking at here is a document that Ohio just delivered a couple weeks ago, and our company is actually listed in this document. The National AAM Center is being built in Springfield, Ohio. That's the airport just east of Dayton. It's about an hour north of here. That's the building. It's under construction now, and our office is approximately where that arrow is pointing, and they're going to have vertiports. Even if you're not into aviation and you happen to be in the area, it's a great place to go see. And some of the OEMs you see on the top right-hand side, Beta, Joby, Lyft, are all going to have facilities there. This is a quick synopsis of the accomplishments we've made so far. So we've gotten about $1 million in funding between the state of Ohio, the Air Force, and the FAA. We're listed in the NASA Community MOU. So that's the umbrella document that NASA is using to configure this new industry for the U.S. We have the FAA and the Air Force as tech partners. We're included in that Fly Ohio document we just talked about. We've got 3 university partners that have signed on, OSU, OU, and Purdue. And we just signed an enterprise license agreement with the state of Ohio. We have one in the works with Indiana, and we'll get to where that's going here in a second. And then we have a couple of other projects in the pipeline. What you see in the green is our primary target market, and then what you see in the red is the stepping stone to getting there. There's some other adjacent markets that are sizable. We'll go after those in time, but we're not going to take our eye off the ball. We're going to stick to the knitting, which is this, I think, 3-step process here of getting there, which is develop a relationship with each state's DOT, work into, sell them on the 3D weather, the output that we just showed you, which is ready to go. It's live right now, and get some discretionary funds. And that leads to the state operating budget, which are sizable even for the smaller states. The technology is not just the software, it's also some hardware. And what you see down there, LAWN, Low Altitude Weather Network, is what the universities and the Air Force has collaborated on. What you're looking at is an older prototype version, but we have this operational at Springfield. It's delivering data, which addresses some of the gap that I showed on that third screen in. I'd like to say thank you to Mark Chalmers and the team here who did do a fantastic job putting in some work to get us moving in that direction of engaging with the state DOTs. In conclusion, I want to thank everybody for their time. I'm here looking for an EIR. I am overloaded. I need some help, and it's that expertise that could greatly benefit this endeavor. Thank you.
Thanks. Keep that. All right. So it was pretty exciting, right? Does anybody have any questions or concerns, comments for Ethan? Do you know what he's talking about?
Yeah. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Are you planning to integrate your product directly into Whiteley's application target pilot?
No, and the reason is I think this is it's a stepping stone to getting there. So I'm not trying to compete with the Raytheons and Lockheeds that are going to put these big systems in. Possibly they'll see this as something that does get integrated, but right now I'm just trying to sell it as a standalone bicycle for all these states to get stepstone into these markets.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
Forgive me if this was obvious to people that understand this field more, but who's the target customer? Who's the actual person who's going to pay for this?
So it's the aviation director at the state DOT.
Okay.
So each Texas DOT, INDOT, Indiana DOT has an aviation director that usually is responsible for the airports in that state. And that person or that team is responsible for making sure that the infrastructure, hardware, as well as the air traffic management for not only manned aviation, but unmanned aviation is in place. So it's that entity that has discretionary funds. That is the 2.5 million that I circled in red. And then that steps into the state funds, which is the state operating budget, which is the big dollars.
So that's for every state. So we kind of invents for specifically every state, essentially.
I'm not saying that's the only solution, and maybe we have to pivot, but yes, I think it's easier to go after 50 customers than 50,000 customers, and we've been having success with it so far. So I think that's a path, but maybe that changes.
Have you been working at all with Right Pat? Anybody up there?
Yes, sir.
Could you repeat that question?
The question was, have we been working with Right Pat? And yes, sir, we've been working with AFRL. So there's several senior officers at both AFRL and the main Air Force team that are on our team. We have a monthly meeting with AFRL.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Ethan. Very cool. You can hand it over. All right. Next up, we have Greg Appleman with his concept, Appleman Airway. Come on up. And when we have our question and answer, if you don't mind, we'll bring a microphone around to you guys too. All right. Clicker's all yours.
All right, thanks. Good morning, everybody. My name is Greg Appleman. I'm one of the anesthesiologists at UCMC over here. And today we're going to be talking about my device, the Appleman Airway. So who am I? And why should you listen to what I have to say? I've been practicing anesthesiology for about 17 years now. The problem we're going to talk about, I see all the time. It's very significant. I've done at least 25,000 anesthetics, and that's probably conservative. I came from Georgetown University, got here to Cincinnati, where it's a lot easier to live. So we're going to talk today about anesthesia and endoscopy. And many of you in the room have probably been through an endoscopy procedure, but if not, that's the thing they're going to stick down your throat, into your stomach, and look around. Most people, when they hear about this, they say, put me to sleep. So we're going to talk about what happens when you get put to sleep. This is our anesthesiologist. He checks out you or his patient. He decides everything looks good, and he's going to very safely make a plan to get you off to sleep. He hooks you up to the propofol, and we start giving you medicine to make you go to sleep so that they can put that horrible long thing in your mouth. We look at your vital signs. This is our most important thing. This is how we know you're safe. We watch your breathing. We watch your oxygen levels. All this stuff tells us that you're safe during this procedure. Now, what's about to happen next is something that happens very, very commonly during these procedures, at least 50% of the time, and it poses a very significant risk to your safety, which is why we're here with you in this procedure. This is airway obstruction. Airway obstruction happens. On the left, you can see a nice open airway. The tongue is not blocking the airway, and there's free flow of ventilation to keep you breathing and oxygenating your blood. On the right, you can see that the airway is obstructed. The back of the tongue has fallen over the airway, and it's pinching closed, making it very hard for you to breathe. When this happens, you are not safe. What happens in the endoscopy procedure room is this. Our anesthesiologist sees that your oxygen saturation is now dropped. You're not safe anymore. The alarms start going off. He tells the proceduralist to stop what he's doing. Pull out your endoscope because I have to get this patient's oxygen levels back up. So now he's performing a maneuver called a jaw lift, which pulls your tongue up out of the way and lets you breathe again. This is going to bring your oxygen level back up and prevent something bad from happening to you. We figure at least half of the 8 million endoscopies have this airway obstruction occurring, and it may be more than that. And out of those 4 million, probably about 500,000 are necessitating pulling out the endoscope, which then leads to a delay in the procedure and a delay in the whole day of endoscopies. This is an oral airway. An oral airway is a device that we use to prevent airway obstruction. It's designed to go in your mouth. It pushes your tongue out of the way, and it prevents that from blocking the flow of ventilation. Problem with endoscopy is they want to put a big camera in the spot that we want to put an airway. Obviously, can't be doing both. There is no device available to help us during this procedure with airway obstruction. We're forced to do those maneuvers that you saw where we crank up on your jaw or we pull your chin up to pull your tongue out of the way. And that can be very time consuming and arduous for us. And it can also not always be effective enough to get through the procedure safely. The airway that I've designed is designed specifically to work during upper endoscopy. It has a bite block built into it and a means to replace the current things that go in the mouth to provide the exposure that the endoscopist needs. It's designed to relieve the airway obstruction that we talked about. It's also got features to improve gas exchange, which allows us to better deliver oxygen to you and sample the breaths that you breathe out so that we know you're breathing adequately. This in turn will lead to safer and more efficient endoscopy procedures. The anesthesia device market is very, very robust. We spend a lot of money in the hospital. $13.7 billion in anesthesia and respiratory devices, and the market that we're looking at is this $2 billion in respiratory disposable devices. This is not a problem that's going away. It's getting worse. Every year of my practice, we see more and more patients have significant and severe airway obstruction, and this is directly correlative to the obesity epidemic, which also relates to the sleep apnea problem. And these two concerns both make this situation worse and shows up every single day. So I need an EIR. What I've done so far is a lot of research. I've done focus groups with all the anesthesia providers that I know. I've done design, drawings, and I have a provisional patent in place. The next step for me is to get a prototype down so that I can get this out to the people I know and start some clinical trials. And I have a network of people that I can use to do this. And obviously, as we get through the whole procedure here and we get this to market, the goal is to get this in every single endoscopy center, every single hospital, all around the country. And this is a gigantic market that's essentially untouched. And here you see our happy physician. This is our gastroenterologist who's happy that his procedure did not get delayed. And this is our happy patient on the right who knows nothing about the airway obstruction that happened while he was sleeping, but he was safe anyway. Thanks very much. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Greg. All right. Yes, they're going to bring a microphone over to you so you can ask your question.
Great presentation. I love the use of visuals to really drive the point home. Can you just share a few words on the competitive landscape? What other solutions are tackling this issue? I presume others are trying to solve this.
So the only product in the market in America right now is a mask that goes over your face that has a hole for an endoscope to go through. What that does is it gives you better oxygen concentration that you're breathing, but it does nothing for airway obstruction, which is the real problem. So even with that mask on, we're still yanking on your jaw. It's just more oxygen that you can breathe. There's no actual airway that can work with endoscopy procedures.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. Thank you, Greg. I'll take your clicker. Thanks. Okay, so next we have a group from Children's. Drew Barzman and his team. I'll let you introduce yourselves here. There's that. So take it away.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Drew Barzman. I'm a child and adolescent forensic psychiatrist at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. I have over 20 years of forensic experience. A forensic psychiatrist is a medical doctor who is an expert in assessing risk for violence. Our team, along with our artificial intelligence expert, Dr. Judith Dexheimer, have been developing a unique app called ARIA, which will help school professionals prevent school violence. We all know about the mental health crisis for students, but today we're going to be focusing on the mental health crisis for school professionals. Jennifer Combs, one of our research team members, will now discuss her perspective and her experience as a past school professional.
Hi, I'm Jenny. I used to be a school-based therapist, and my caseload was always full. I remember one morning, I needed to see about 10 kids, but suddenly I got an urgent message from the office. They needed me to see a child who had just threatened to kill a teacher at school. I remember everybody was really nervous. It's hard for school professionals to keep their mind on their job when there's a constant risk of violence. People were asking me, Jenny, do we need to send this child to the emergency department? Do we need to call the police? It was really overwhelming. As I started to prepare, I thought, I don't even have an assessment tool to use. I really wish that I had somebody to provide me with a second opinion, but I knew as I got started, I was pretty much on my own.
My heart goes out to Jenny. Jenny's situation happens everywhere in clinics and schools all the time, and school professionals feel helpless about preventing school violence. Based on our surveys of school professionals, they want to learn new ways of assessing for risk, and the current risk assessments are long and complicated, time-consuming, and confusing. ARIA, an app, will act as a second brain and a second set of ears, trained as a forensic psychiatrist. ARIA will help to rapidly and accurately assess risk for violence, and ARIA will also help school professionals feel more confident and have peace of mind so that they can stay focused on their students. Here's how it works. Matt has a subtle or major behavioral change at school. He's sent to Jenny Combs for an urgent evaluation, and she uses ARIA while asking our 28 clinically validated questions while at school. ARIA is a mobile app that will listen to the interview, transcribe the interview, and then evaluate the language and sentence structure of the interview in order to rapidly develop recommendations to lower Matt's risk and to help him. These treatment recommendations may include medical, psychiatric, neurologic, or psychosocial interventions to help Matt and lower his risk. ARIA will help decrease Jenny's evaluation time by 90%. ARIA will also provide an objective second opinion to Jenny to improve her confidence. ARIA will help to validate Jenny's clinical decision-making. And ARIA will avoid providing labels and risk levels to schools unless there's imminent risk. ARIA was built on a strong clinical and research foundation with no racial bias, and ARIA and the algorithm are patent pending. Why would you want ARIA to be used? ARIA will help to improve the safety of schools, student outcomes, and the mental health of school professionals. ARIA will help parents and students avoid long, stressful ER visits where they don't know how to do these risk assessments at all. Our work has been featured in national and local magazines, including Fortune and Newsweek, as well as others listed on this slide. And we have done interviews on radio and TV. Our team is large, multidisciplinary, and collaborative. But we need an EIR. We need help with developing the MVP, and we need help with the business model and networking. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Drew.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Anybody have any questions for Drew about this idea? It's a big problem, big idea. Yes.
Hi, thank you. Do you envision this being kind of a general screening tool, or used just if there's a behavioral problem or something that teachers or counselors have identified as a potential issue?
Right now, we're envisioning that whether there's a subtle behavior change or something major, that's when we would do this type of intervention, like an urgent evaluation, but it may change over time.
Hi, great presentation.
Oh, thank you.
I was wondering exactly, how does this avoid racial bias, or is this like some type of algorithm, or how does that work exactly?
It's objective, and we have research results that show no racial correlation to our findings. So risk levels and outcomes did not vary based on race, but we looked at all the different factors. So it's based on our 8 years of research. And we're also NIH funded as well.
Any other question? Nope. Okay. All right. Thanks, Drew.
Thank you.
It's great. Thank you. Okay. So next we have Ira Crawley. Get the to him right there. Thank you. With his idea, Blue Cloud Foot Therapy. Come on up, Ira.
Thank you.
It's all yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ira Crawley, and I created Blue Cloud Foot Therapy as a new way to soothe foot pain and to remove dead skin and calluses so athletes can stay on track with their training. I'm an athlete. I've been an athlete for pretty much as long as I can remember. Played some high school football and basketball and Division I college football and basketball as well. I ended up playing a little pro football as well down in the IFL, the International Football League. For me, athletics is a lifestyle, right? It's something I do to stay in shape and to also it's an outlet for me. Growing up in the country, I didn't have very many neighbors, so I had to do something with all that energy. It's something I also hope to do for a lifetime. And there's a lot of lifetime athletes out there. You know, whether you're working out, trying to become the best in the world, or just wanting to become the best that you can be. Athletes, the one thing that's common to all of us is it only takes a pebble in a shoe to bring us to our knees, right? Foot pain is something that is very common among athletes. It's not unique to athletes, but it is actually can be pretty detrimental to our goals in terms of our training. I know from personal experience, I've had some issues with foot calluses. Sometimes those calluses, when they're on the outside of the foot and it starts to reach some of the areas where the nerve endings are, it can really feel like literally there's a stone in my shoe or my foot's on fire. So often I'll actually find myself walking. As an athlete, I can mentally just sort of, put it out of my mind and keep going. But then I'll notice down the road, I may start feeling pain in my ankle. And then eventually it'll kind of go up to my knee and I may have some hip pain. I'm wondering, why do I have hip pain? Well, I find sometimes, even though I'm putting the pain out of my mind, my body reacts a little differently. Sometimes I'll find that I may pronate to try to avoid walking on that particular sore spot, or I may supinate if it's on the other side. And so those kinds of things are not very good for athletes in particular, because we have to maintain, a straight line in terms of our function, our body function. And so when that happens, it can really cause a lot of issues. And there are over 200,000 nerve endings in the sole of our feet. All right, so lots of opportunity, for that pain to get quite severe. So that's why it's so important for athletes in particular to really maintain our level of foot health. And so we also want to look our best as well. But the devices that are out there right now, they don't cut the mustard really. I know in terms of the massages, of the ones that I've tried in particular, they've got the one with the large rotating balls on the outside where you put your foot in and it kind of crushes your feet. Kind of hurts, but it also kind of feels good in a way. Well, those, unfortunately, it's been my experience that they don't really affect the sole of the foot, which is where a lot of those nerve endings are, right? So, and as you see on the top here, the handheld devices, the pumice stone and the sort of cheese grater that you use on your feet, those are very impractical. I mean, I know just trying to use those, for example, you're kind of trying to, bend your knees forward or backward, and if you're trying to get that spot on the outside of the foot, then now you're twisting your back. And every time I use those things, my knees and my back, they feel terrible. So, there's got to be a better way. If you've never asked a trainer to give you a foot massage, don't. I did that once, and I had a particularly snug tape job that day. Had to loosen that thing up. So that's why I invented Blue Cloud Foot Therapy, to triumph where other foot devices and products fall short. Blue Cloud Foot Therapy, it provides a more effective massage targeting the sole of the feet with a patent-pending method of massage, and as well with additional attachments you can just snap on another attachment and use it to remove the dead skin and calluses, right? So, so far where we've gotten is, I just had the idea last February, and around March timeframe, we decided to do some phase 1 marketing, right? Where we're just kind of looking to see if there's anything else really that's out there like that. And when I didn't find anything, I said, let's do a little bit of a deeper dive, and let's initiate the help of a lawyer to get us an initial patentability search, right? When that came back positive, it was game on. So then we created a product brochure and a virtual invention presentation. And as you see on the right here, we've got a non-provisional utility patent pending. So, and there's a table in the back because we actually do have a prototype I just finished. It's a sort of a prototype of a prototype, but it gives you a really good idea in terms of how my device will operate. So now I need some help. I need your help. It's been just me so far working this out, but I need my next step is to reach out to the local market here in the Cincinnati area. The market's pretty big, right? There's, last year, I believe it was $3.75 billion globally for the massage device market. But I'm looking to focus more on the Cincinnati area and the athletes here. My plan is to reach out to Beacon Orthopedics, for example, and some of the other athletes. But I need to create some marketing packages with prototypes, right? So that I can send them out to about 30 of the local medical physicians for review and potential endorsement. And then I would like to hire certainly the right executives for Blue Cloud so that we can sort of, get on the right path. I certainly will be needing a e-marketing mobile devices guru to help. And along with that comes someone that can really help with the website generation. I reserved the site, but to handle all the intense traffic. And then I need a supply chain hero as well, right? So for logistics, as well as to sort of close the back door on potential copycats, right? So if anyone here has contacts with these professionals, we'd love to speak with you. Thank you very much for your time, and God bless.
All right. Any questions for Ira about his idea? You want to tell them about your prototype?
Yeah, so the prototype I created is back there on the table, so feel free to stop by. Just something I kind of worked together. I found an old Dremel tool in my dad's garage, so I was like, hey, I could use that. All right, and then one of my friends who's got a 3D printer, I solicited his help, and we came up with something that looks very much like I would want it to look in the end, and it works.
All right. Cool. Any questions? Okay. All right. Thank you, Ira.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So next we have Kim Burke. Kim is UC faculty, an innovator, and I will let you control your slides there. Take it away.
Great. Thanks. Hi, my name is Kim Burke, and I am with the Division of Experience-Based Learning and Career Education at UC. And I am here with my son, Casey, who he and I have come up with this idea. And we've been playing around with different ideas and finally decided to come here to try to see how we might be able to make it work. So what we are really trying to do, designers are very ignored in the market. And so we are trying to find more efficient and cost-effective practices for hiring, especially for small architecture and design firms. So our opportunity came when we saw kind of the statistics. 60% of architecture firms, this is according to the AIA, have 5 or less employees, and 91% have less than 50 people. So there's a lot of opportunity there because they are not the target for big operations and for recruiters. They tend to get ignored. And the AIA has also reported that the number one challenge right now in architecture is just finding and recruiting qualified staff. So as you know, the market has been just really hot in most areas, and architecture and design is no different. So As our example, we have a small employer, and this is one of our co-op employers, TDA, then Design Architecture, and they are a relatively small firm. They do happen to have an HR person. And so when they go to hire, which they try to do because they're growing and expanding like crazy, they have pretty much one of two options. The first one is to post on a job site. They happen to post on Indeed. So what happens? They get plenty of applicants, but none of them are qualified. And there's no way for them. They have to go and sift through them. And then we do have them. It takes a lot of time to try to go through the screening process and everything else. They've tried recruiters, but they don't get much attention from recruiters because they don't hire that often that they're a real target for recruiters. So they've gone through that process. They've had some very bad luck. And so they're kind of looking at what other options they are. Unfortunately, architecture is a service-based industry. That means every hour that an architect works or anybody in the office, that time gets billed out. So if they are not paying attention and they're not doing their work, what happens is that they lose money. So if an architect, and that's what happens, is the HR people don't know design. They really can't conduct the interviews. So what ends up happening is that the architects have to stop what they're doing. Generally, it's the principals, which are the ones that are billing out at the highest rate, which can be anywhere from 250, 500 plus, per hour. They have to stop doing that and then spend time interviewing. So time is money for them, and it really doesn't work well the way that the current recruiting process works. So what we're offering is a lower cost way that would be a lot more efficient for them, which is Correlate. And if any of you have ever been on eHarmony, and I'm sure if you haven't been on it, you have seen the commercials. And what they do is they try to match. So they're matching people. We're trying to match employers with employees. And so that's kind of our big thing. So basically the way it would operate is very similar to the way that eHarmony operates, which is where the employer would put in a job profile and say exactly what it is that they were looking for. The employee puts in a profile and talks about what they're looking for. And then we use a 20-point system to go ahead and try to match them. And so we've looked at, how do we go about doing this? So our idea is to start to do some different assessments. One would be a work style assessment, finding out exactly how each person works, how each company works. And so what is the company looking for in the way that someone works, trying to find a good match, because a lot of times you find that, the high employee turnover is due to being in a situation that doesn't match the way that you want to work or what your skill sets are. And so we're trying to change that. So the second one would be a personality assessment. Again, we're not trying to put people in a box here. We're just trying to help them to find the best fit for the job. Lastly, a skills assessment, because in design, it's a lot of skills. You have to know a lot of programs. You have to know a lot about different things, about architecture, about design, whatever it is. And so we plan to partner with people that actually do skills assessments like Adobe and try to find out how exactly we can get a level. And then if a job searcher doesn't have the skills that they're looking for, how can we help them to get them? So pointing them to the correct resources. So if they find that they're failing in these areas and they want these kinds of jobs, how do we help them to get there? So we also thought once they put in a profile, they could keep that profile in the system to try to connect with other people along the way. And so that they would have the opportunity then to continue to network through this program. So a little bit like LinkedIn, but in a different way. And we figured the business model would work, that there would be paid subscriptions, paid for both the job seekers and for the employers to put them in there. We would continue that. So if once they put them in and they wanted to keep their profiles up, we could do that. And that would be paid networking. So they would continue to pay a small fee. And then we think we could get some ad revenue out of this as well. So in looking at the kind of markets, we're looking at kind of bridging the architecture design market and the recruiting market. This only shows architecture numbers, and the billings for firms that are under 50 people is at $2.3 billion. So it's a pretty substantially sized market. So revenues are expected to increase. So that means that there's even going to be more jobs out there. In terms of recruiting market, it is massive. So $28.5 billion, or $28.5 billion, $200 billion worldwide. So there's plenty of room in the market for another opportunity and another way to match people. So what we're really looking at doing is trying to find strategic partnerships, looking at partnering with people like Adobe, Autodesk, some of the people that do assessments already that are doing work styles. So we don't want to create our own necessarily. We want to try to put all these pieces together to get them to work for us. I have the unique opportunity that I work with co-op students in architecture and design, and just in architecture and interior design, we have over 600 jobs listed. We have hundreds, if not thousands, of students that go through the program. So we have a great test market, and that's where we would like to start. And that's why we're looking for IRB protocols to try to figure out how to get it in there, test it through the co-op students to make sure that it actually works. And then this is our team, which happens to be also our co-op team. So all the people, and we actually have a lot more than that, that are interested, but putting this together first in place with co-op students and then moving forward to take it maybe into production if we find out that it works. So what we're looking for is a partnership with an EIR to try to help us to figure out how to move this forward. We really do need help in partnering with some of the assessment providers. We've got pretty much clout here at UC because DAP is a well-known program. We've got a lot of students and a lot of partnerships already. So we're hoping to just be able, that might be a natural connection. And then help with IRB, because that's one of the sticking points if we're going to be using human test subjects, and then IP protection if this project goes. So we see a lot of opportunity for growth in this market once we get it established. So this is what we're looking at, and this is myself. I'm Kim Burke and my son Casey. Any questions?
Okay, any questions for Kim? Yes, he's bringing a microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. When you have a hire that doesn't work out, or not you, but your potential customers, is it more often that it's personality based or that it's skill based?
I would say more often it's personality based, but it can be skill based as well. So what we find is that a lot of times people are put into positions. I said, and use this. My daughter is an interior designer as well. Her first job, she's dyslexic. She disclosed that before they offered her the job, which is what I instructed her to do. They put her in a job where she was working on spreadsheets and numbers where if you transpose one number, guess what happens? You get a different product, or you transpose a number for price and you've just given somebody a wrong quote. So bad fit all around. She ended up leaving in a very short period of time because it wasn't a good fit. I find that happens quite frequently, that people are put into jobs where they're not happy, they don't fit well. Very, very high employee turnover in design in general. I think if we can say exactly what somebody's looking for, give them realistic expectations about what the job is. There's always going to be aspects you don't like, but what can we help you to be successful? And that's kind of our goal.
And just as a follow-up on the personality questions, how do you avoid the issue where, like, if you ask a question like how diligent someone is, presumably every employer is looking for someone with high diligence. How do you avoid people just putting down the answers that they think the employer wants to hear?
That was one of the things we found really interesting. And I did a lot of tests on different personality tests and different like skills assessments and different things just to test them out to see if there were things in the market that I thought were valuable. And one of the most interesting ones happened to be in the eHarmony assessment, where they asked you questions that weren't direct questions about it. They ask you several questions around an issue. Like in eHarmony, they don't ask you, are you looking for a tall blonde? They don't ask you anything like that. But they do give you, they give you images and say, what do you see in this image? Which one do you prefer? So there's ways of asking questions without being direct and say, are you a hard worker? Because who's going to say, no, I'm lazy? So you ask other questions. Like, if you have the option to do this or to do this, which would you choose? And then you ask 3 or 4 questions that skirt around that option without actually ever asking the question directly, so that you can get a better assessment. Is it 100%? No. But it's a better way to do it than just trying to ask somebody outright to give themselves, because we always think we're better than we are, unfortunately. It's hard to see sometimes what our weaknesses are. Some people, that's all they see in themselves. Most people see only their strengths. So in trying to look at assessments that really look at a broader picture of somebody and not asking them direct questions and to assess them.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you, Kim. Okay, so next up, I think, thank you. We've got DIY Point, and this is Kevin Peck. He is here with his son, Nate, and I'll let him introduce himself and let you know what this is. Thanks. Oh, handing you the wrong thing.
All right, let's see. Morning, everyone. Ooh, that's real close. My name is Kevin Peck, and I'm with the DIY Point team. A little bit about myself. I am a veteran of the U.S. Navy's submarine force. And since my time in service, I have spent over 20 years in the project, construction, and facility management fields, with the last 14 years as head of maintenance and operations for UC's regional campuses. So DIY Point, what's our big idea here? Well, our mission is we want to become the recognized leader in home improvement deliverables goods to the region. In order to get there, we have to understand this guy's story. Who's this guy? Well, he's your typical DIYer. He's your weekend warrior. Uses a lot of the free time on the weekends to do anything from simple paint projects to more complex projects. And recently he's decided to build a feature wall for his wife that he saw on Pinterest. He gets pen to paper, makes a design, sketches out a few ideas, and then builds a material list on basically on what he has and what he needs. Heads to the stores, and within a day, start putting things together. So as we all have been in do-it-yourself, you run into problems within the first day. You don't have enough of one material, you have the wrong material, so on and so forth. So what ends up happening is you have a 2-weekend project turn into a 4 to 6 weekend project, which just wastes time and money. So the problem is when you don't have that plan, that project plan, it sets the tone and tenor for success in your project and costs you money and time and gas, and it just eats up your project. And it kind of makes the project less fun. There's also the cost, quality, and quantity disparities among the big box stores. We all go to different Lowe's, Home Depot, the rest of them for different reasons. And there are expenses in some, and it's just quality. You can get better lumber in some. There's time lost researching the how-tos. Let's be honest, none of these come with instructions. They're not kits. DIY is very customizable based on what you want, what your outcome is. So you spend a lot of time Googling and YouTubing and just wasting time trying to figure out how to do this. So let's say you have a plan, but it goes south. What you're doing is you're making multiple trips. You're going to multiple stores. You're wasting all your valuable free time on something that you're just going to be a labor of love. You're forgetting material while you're working. And what this means is we all do it. You go to a store for 5 items. You didn't realize until you're back working on the project that you forgot one of the 5 items. So now what do you have to do now? You stop work, get in your car, clean up, and head to the store. Again, wasting time and money. And then there's having to return the wrong item. Most of us has ever done a plumbing project understand that a lot of us just stand in the aisle looking for the right item, but we end up grabbing a bunch of bags, hoping one of the items fits. We install it, we get the right item, and then we spend time in line returning all the things that we didn't use. So this is just a little mock-up of the website that we had put together, kind of how we would want it to look like and what the DIY Point solution is. So what we want to have a website that's a marketplace that has already templated project lists, or what we call recipes, that will give you instructions not only on what you need or how to build it, but maybe even a video too. We want you to be able to correctly shop and budget for your project the first time. And then we want you to find the right materials across multiple home improvement stores rather than going to all their different sites or physically going to all their different stores. And then in many cases, fix those DIY oops moments faster when you realize that you don't have enough mud to finish the job. So one part's for when you plan, one part's for when you don't. So the mobile app, there's obviously would be a mobile app aspect to this. And say you're out in your backyard or you're out and about and you want to build this raised bed planter. You click on the template, you see what you need, to compare to what you might have. You load the shopping cart and you put it in and you order it. And you can use, at least in our theory, you'd be able to use the BOPIS, buy online, pick up in store, or pick and pull as they call them, between all the big box stores, or you would use what's called last mile fulfillment. And we all know last mile fulfillment, it's become pretty big. Uber Eats, DoorDash, Instacart, Kroger Grocery, they've all gotten into it. Well, DIY Point wants to get into that too. We want to utilize platforms like Mapbox and Nexla, as other companies like Instacart and DoorDash do. We want to start locally, at least 2 to 3 local cities, and we want to expand as the request for service grows. The industry outlook right now for home improvement, $250 billion combined revenue, $35 billion in combined profit, with a 5.7% revenue growth over the last 5 years. This is the big snag, the home improvement average delivery from click to door. It shows basically from 2019 to quarter 3 21 that it's gotten marginally better, but you're still looking at 5 days from the time you order to the time you get it to your door. These are just the basic revenue models. Marketplace, obviously commission, transaction, advertising based, and fee for service. These are typical of this kind of marketplace. Our key timeline goals from quarter 1 23 through quarter 2 24 with the beta testing. It's very simplified right now. So what can we use? Well, it's pretty obvious. We can use an entrepreneur mentorship. We can use somebody that has connections to coders and AI algorithms. We can use community business leaders or connections to community business leaders. And we can use web-based market experience. So this is just the team right now. Me and that strapping lad right there. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Any questions?
Any questions for Kevin?
No? Okay.
All right. Yes.
Does Home Depot and Lowe's also have recipes and do-it-yourself?
They're all in stages of working on certain things in market and pilot cities. They've all a lot of people don't know this, but they've also gotten out of their own shipping. They don't deliver on their own. They contract out now. So Home Depot's working on something similar, but Lowe's is a little far behind on that. Home Depot's focus has always been pro sales. Lowe's is trying to skim from that. But no, currently right now they don't have anything functioning. Yes, that would be the plan, the perfect plan. As most of these companies did, they started out in like a San Francisco situation and they grew out. And as they became more popular, they started grabbing more of the region.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks.
Nice work. You can hand that to him early. Okay. So next we've got Dong-Eun Kim, and I just want to take a quick break here to let everybody know that the coffee is still out there. Feel free to, come and go as you like. We're not, nailed to our seats. And I also want to share with the teams that are graduating today that we do have a small graduation gift for you, which is a shirt much like this, only in a more attractive heather dark gray, as opposed to this one, the steel color. So, come see me after the event, and I've got a customized sized shirt for each one of the graduates today. And also, when we finish up with our presentations, I'd like everybody to come up so we can get a group photo. So, all right, I just wanted to make sure that I said that all before we launch into our next group. All right, Dong-Eun, take it away.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dong-Eun Kim. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Aerospace Engineering and Engineering Mechanics at the University of Cincinnati. I'm very excited to be here to share our idea, and I hope you enjoy my pitch. Okay, today we are going to introduce a new innovative engine called Gyro Engine. Imagine some products that we interact with in everyday life. A blender, drill, lawnmower, treadmill, automobile, and elevator. Do you see a common factor for all these products? It is that they are operated by either motors or engine. Some require high speed, and some others require high torque, right? Then how do we amplify the given maximum capacity of motors and engines? The gear plays that role. However, it is known that the gear applied product's efficiency degrades around between 5 to 80%. 5 to 80%. For smaller products like drill, people don't care this efficiency because the input power required is not that high. However, for bigger products like the elevator, it matters. For this reason, we focus on applications demanding high torque. Stationary systems like conveyors, cranes, escalators use the electric motor, while mobile systems like ships, excavators, and well drill systems use the engine. Okay. As mentioned earlier, there's a significant loss because of gear usage. Also, due to irregular loading utility, it experiences vibration and counter torque, influencing the motor life. In addition, mobile systems requiring huge input power mostly rely on fossil fuel that pollute the environment. Our new conceptualized torque generator, Gyro Engine, could be a solution thanks to the following two main features. First is a torque acceleration, meaning that it could generate high torque with lesser electricity. This will give us better efficiency and lower the operation cost. Second is a counter torque elimination that can increase lifetime. Our idea stems from how we operate the biggest man-made object in space, in a National Space Station, given limited power. We are the first to bring this down to the Earth. At this point, you may want to know about how efficient our product would be. Let us consider a 10-story shopping mall having 4 escalators on each floor. It typically operates the escalators for 14 hours a day for 6 days a week. The average price of the electric motor ranges from $3,000 to $9,000, and our gyro engine price will be comparable. Our product is expected to require lesser maintenance, but we assumed it to be identical for a simple and fair comparison. Given the average electricity cost, the current utility is about $223,000 per year, but it is expected to be $58,000 per year by using our gyro engine, which is about a 74% reduction from the current utility bill. In 2020, the electric motor market size was evaluated as about $130 billion, and the high torque motor market size was about $580 million. In 2026, the electric and high torque motor market size is expected to grow about 1.4 and 1.8 times respectively. The engine market size is expected to grow 1.6 times from 2020 to 2028. We don't know the market size that we can target for the engine at this moment, but the entire market size that we can target will be over $1.1 billion in 2026. This shows some exemplary applications, and our gyro engine could change current market ecosystem in a much better way. We validated our concept through simulation studies and filed patents for conceptual design. Now, we are ready to build a minimum viable product to demonstrate the feasibility of our concept and file additional patents. Next, we are targeting to commercialize our initial product around the end of 2025. Our team has over 70 years of development and research experience by managing 34 projects with a secured funding of about $4 million. Also, in light of the number of publications and patents, we are not only active researchers, but also enthusiastic inventors. However, we do need some guidance for our business model. If you are interested in our idea and vision, please be part of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dongan. It's pretty exciting technology. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, back there, over there.
So you've got a lot of applications there. Where would you start?
It is really good question. We want to start with the kind of moving walk or like escalator first. So that is kind of the So when we talk, see the size of the current, the motors on engine, okay? So that is kind of proper size that we can start to build. Yeah, because of size-wise, we decide to go with that application first.
Yeah, great presentation. So the U.S. government's just approved $369 billion in funding for kind of climate innovation, and you're kind of in part of the sweet spot. Have you thought about how your model might be part of the answer to what they're looking for, potentially of even greater benefit to the University of Cincinnati too?
I didn't know about that program till now, so I will start looking into that and see what I can do for that. Yeah, that's really good. Exciting to hear that, and yeah.
Well, you're in the sweet spot, and
Yeah.
a lot of that money is very biased towards universities and probably very biased towards the Midwest too. So it'd be great to see this scale. It's a really, really powerful concept.
All right. Okay. Great.
Yep, and that's one of the reasons that we bring all of you together to meet with our inventors, because you may know better some of these potential applications. So we hope that you connect with Dong-Un. Any other questions? Oh, okay. Okay, you got your question. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I'll take the clicker. Thank you. All right. These were just in case there were extra questions. Okay. So next, we've got Next Gen 3D Printer for Medicine. Prashant Ravi, come on up.
Yes.
And I'll let you take control there and introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Prashant. I'm a faculty in the Department of Radiology. I'm an engineer by training, and I apply 3D printing to plan complex surgeries. I've helped plan over 200 surgeries so far across the College of Medicine. But as an expert, I'm frustrated at how much better the technology can be. And that's what I'm here to talk to you today about. So this is a 68-year-old patient with bone loss due to anti-cancer drugs. And this particular model was used to plan the cutting margins on the bone and to pre-bend a reconstruction plate for the surgery. The process of going from a CT scan to a 3D printed model is complex and involves multiple steps. However, with the current technology, the quickest turnaround possible is a couple of days. Typically, it takes twice as long. And if outsourced to industry, it ends up taking about a week. And the 3D printing time ends up contributing about a day in this turnaround time, simply because of the overnight nature of the print job in most cases. Because of this long turnaround, trauma or emergency cases cannot receive 3D printing. Patients experience unnecessary delays in their surgeries. The cost per model continues to remain high, and it's actually prohibitive as it stands. And the iteration from CT scan to model is also inefficient and incredibly slow. And I think we ought to do better than that in this day and age. So by reducing the cost per model, this technology can then translate into multiple surgeries within the hospital network and serve as a single-stop solution to the administration. So VAT photopolymerization works by the photocuring of liquid resin. So you have your light source at the bottom and liquid resin, which is separated from the light source by a thin membrane. As the build plate lifts out of the resin, the model lifts up with it. But after every layer, each of the layer must be peeled from this membrane, and that's the animation you see on the right. And this can take up to 3/4 of the total print time. And one of the key inefficiencies driving this is actually the low peel angle in this process. Our lift-based peel separation overcomes this challenge by manipulating the membrane and increasing this peel angle. Now, this is analogous to peeling a bandage from your skin. If you just lift the bandage and try to peel along the side, it's much more difficult compared to peeling straight up. And that's exactly the principle we employ in our invention. Research and development tests show a 60% lowering in the peel forces. And that's with 5x the peel speed compared to industry standard. And we hope that that's going to translate into a 3x print speed in the prototype. In 2030, the 3D printing market is valued at 94 billion. And about 6 billion of this is in healthcare, with a target market which we anticipate to be around 500 million. During the last decade, hospitals adopted 3D printing at an exponential rate, with a CAGR of almost 50%. Our next generation 3D printer based on lift-based peel separation can reduce the time from image to model, and thereby reducing the cost per model and helping this technology translate into multiple surgeries within the hospital network. After a rigorous research and development phase, we obtained a provisional patent and have a design for the prototype. After graduation from the venture lab, we plan to focus on the prototyping, raising funds, as well as beta testing and refining our prototype in the short term, and then switch gears to focusing on the scaling and bringing the product to market. This is our experienced team with over 30 years of 3D printing experience. And our expertise spans across research and development, design, manufacturing, software, as well as medicine. A couple of us also occupy leadership roles in medical 3D printing. In order to help us move forward, we ask for mentorship as we navigate the prototyping and fundraising stages. We would also like to benefit from marketing expertise so we can build a marketing strategy for our product. I'm happy to take any questions. I can be reached by email or phone. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Prashant. Does anybody have any questions about this 3D printing model? Benefits, problems? Anybody? Okay. Yes. He's bringing you a microphone.
So 3D printing has really become entrenched within the dental lab in the last 10 years. Have you looked toward that application, toward supporting dental labs?
At the moment, the focus is primarily on the hospital market because that's something we understand. But yeah, sure. In the future, that could be a potential option. And the way the product is structured is it's also easily adaptable to other industries outside of medicine. But because we understand medicine so well, that's our home, and that's where we want to start.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, Prashant. I'll take your clicker. Thank you. All right. So next we have Greg Harris with Next Generation Nerve Repair. Thank you.
All right, so I'm Greg Harris. I'm an assistant professor at Cincinnati in the University of Cincinnati in chemical engineering. And I'm going to talk to you today about our solution for nerve repair. So the team is myself and Dr. Leila Esfandiari, who is an associate professor in biomedical over there at UC. Previous appointments for both of us, I was at Princeton University and a joint appointment at the Mayo Clinic, and Dr. Esfandiari was at UCLA doing research before we both moved to UC. So I'm going to start off with a little story about a car crash that Pat was involved in that led to traumatic injury. So he suffered trauma to the upper body and had severe peripheral nerve damage. This led to a lifetime of issues for Pat because the surgical solution was not good enough. So why didn't Pat's nerves just heal on their own? You can see here my crudely drawn schematic with a nerve bundle innervating some muscle. The muscle's in red, that nerve changed color on this projector actually. It's green up there. So in a nerve injury, you're going to have a gap there, right? It could be crushed, it could be severed, something could happen to that nerve. It just does not have the physical guidance to bridge that gap. You can think of this kind of like a car driving across a bridge. That bridge isn't there. If that guidance isn't there, that car is going to go right into the river and float away. That nerve can't grow across there if it doesn't have the guidance. The protein molecules are what makes up that bridge, and if there's no footings, there's not going to be a bridge there. The electrical messages and every other message telling that nerve to heal, to go across, can't get through in that situation without that bridge. And what happens, which is what happened to Pat, that nerve atrophies, goes away, and then your muscle atrophies, or your skin, or whatever it is that nerve is innervating. And Blue Cloud gave a nice primer, actually, Ira, talking about how you have that pain down in your heel. Without that nervous system, you can't do things you enjoy, like sports. So what's the current clinical solutions out there? End-to-end connection, where you just pull those two together. That doesn't work in traumatic injury because you can't pull nerves. Nerves don't like pulling on them. Nerve grafts, which is what Pat had happen, where you take nerve, usually from the sural nerve in your heel, and you put that somewhere else. That has a pretty low success rate. Maybe 50% if you're lucky. It did not work for Pat all that well. You have a loss of sensation in your heel, and then the downstream application may not even work. And then what's really coming into focus now in engineering labs, medical labs, are nerve guidance conduits. So you're making that physical structure as a bridge, but these aren't really ready for prime time yet. There's not a lot of clinicians out there that really use these for the traumatic injuries. So to kind of take this broader than Pat, we need clinical solutions for nerve injuries across the spectrum, whether that's sports injuries, cancer surgeries, resection of tumors, battlefield injuries, all across the spectrum. If you don't have that healthy nervous system, so in blue on that human over there, you're seeing all of the peripheral nerves. It's innervating everything, all your tissues, your skin, your muscle. Without that healthy nervous system, you can't do the things you enjoy, and that affects a lot of people out there. So we want to address that overarching problem. Kind of again, just talking about what's happening there. In this nerve conduit, you're going to have that fibrin cable, that green, that's kind of your bridge, right? And when you get those signals, you get that bridge, you put it all together, you are going to have the cells move in and kind of fix that nerve. So that's what we're shooting for there. And you need a lot of things for that to happen. You need all those signals, you need those protein molecules, you need that bridge. So our solution addresses that with the bioactive ECM. So that's kind of the proteins, that message. The piezoelectricity is kind of those electrical signals telling that nerve to grow. Putting that all together with less inflammation, and it can be non-invasively stimulated to grow those cells and that nerve across that bridge to get functional healing. So that's where we are. The market size for this, bioactive materials, so that means those proteins, is about 2.27 billion, expected to more than double by 2028. Digging a little deeper into the peripheral nerve injury market, specifically in that trauma, it's about 1.43 billion, expected to double in the next 8 years as well. So this is a sizable market, and there aren't really any viable clinical solutions for these traumatic injuries out there right now. So where we stand now, we have about $1 million in funding from the University of Cincinnati, the Department of Defense, think injured warfighters there, and the National Science Foundation. We have a patent on this, and we have preliminary animal studies that have actually just begun, starting to look at the integration of this into the system. So what we are asking is an EIR to help facilitate the process from kind of the academic space, basic science, looking at this, into advanced animal models, kind of looking beyond where we are now with our animal models, and then ultimately commercialization. So with that, I just want to thank everyone for coming, all the EIRs, and we've been willing to take any questions.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Looks like we have a question over here. Michelle?
Yeah, that was a great presentation. Are these 3D printed and resorbable?
So to your first question, they are not 3D printed. We actually electrospin them because when you think of that bridge, you want cells to follow alignment. So you could 3D print them, but we electrospin them to get aligned fibers to kind of say, go across that injury space, thinking back to the bridge. But yeah, I mean, it could be 3D printed, absolutely. Yeah.
This may be a little overhead, but like, is this just for severed nerves, or could it be like demyelination, that type of stuff too?
So it depends why you're getting demyelination. That's actually a really good question. If it is disease, probably not, because you could put this in, it would regrow, but then the disease phenotype is going to come back, so it would demyelinate. So this is more for those sports injuries, battlefield injuries, car accidents, things that wouldn't naturally happen on their own. Trauma. Yes. Yeah.
Have you looked at expanding into applications, maybe radiation-induced neuropathy?
So the question is, have we looked into radiation-induced neuropathies? We have not. That's an interesting avenue to pursue, though, to look into that. We actually have brought in a neurosurgeon from UC Health as a consult in this, and he's interested in facial reanimation and some other applications, but we haven't looked at that one, so that'd be good to dig into.
When you looked at your animal model, did you happen to notice any inhibition of these growth due to scar formation? Because that's one of the biggest impediment to neuropathy is the scar that forms later on.
Absolutely. So to the first part of your question, we have literally just started the animal models. We don't even have any data yet from it, so I'll let you know in hopefully 6 to 12 weeks. But for the scar tissue, that's exactly why we embed all those proteins, that ECM in there, trying to not necessarily have an inert biomaterial where you can get that scar buildup around it, but something that integrates right in with the cells and tissue, so they come in and make this ECM that integrates with that biomaterial rather than the scarring, the inflammation, things like that. So it's a work in progress, but we're trying to address that exact question.
Yes, one more question.
What's the core innovation that's enabling your technology?
So I would say the core innovation is kind of bringing in those protein molecules, electrospun directly in with the material. So it's much more high throughput than a lot of these academic labs where they might tag growth factors and things to it in a long, laborious process. So getting those bioactive agents right into it, as well as non-invasively, I didn't mention too much of this, but the piezoelectricity means that you can go in, or you could do it at home even, you could stimulate growth with just an ultrasound wand, for example, to actually stimulate that for pain relief or just for regeneration. So kind of two facets there. Awesome. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Greg.
That one.
It's exciting. All right. We're in the home stretch. We've got 3 teams remaining, and the next one is High Sulfity with Screen Me. So I'll let you take it away. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is High Sulfity. And this is a story about how I got here. The year was 2001. I'm sure many of you have had that embedded into your memory. For me, it was July 28th, the day my grandfather became a statistic in lung cancer death. Mere months after he got his diagnosis. He was healthy, he was happy, he wanted to travel. What follows is a series of what ifs. I'm sure some of us know. What if it was earlier? What if it was smaller? What if we had more time? And how do we get there? 10 years later, some really smart people figured that out. 30 seconds in a CT scan, which I'm sure some people in this room have had. 30 seconds. And you would be able to go from that big ball to that little ball. It could mean years. It could mean decades. Today, 1.9 million people is getting screened out of 14.6 million people. That's 12%. That number is dismal. That's 1 in 8 people with lung cancer is getting diagnosed early. Astronomically low. And why is that? The system is complex. We all know this. Is it available? Is it accessible? Can you get a CT scanner in the middle of the mountains in rural Tennessee? Can you get time off of work to sit down in a doctor's office, fight Cincinnati traffic for 15 minutes to find a parking spot, 20 minutes later end up in the office having the doctor run 45 minutes late, and then before you know it, the only thing you can hear is I'm late to get back to work? Is it affordable? What do you have to pay? In this day of age and inflation, do I pay for food or do I pay for a CT scan? And really the main reason is this. Is it fear? Do you really want to know? Most people, no news is good news. And to be honest, most people also don't want to sit in the doctor's office after 15 minutes in traffic and 20 minutes finding a parking spot to hear you should quit smoking, right? Nobody wants to be judged. Nobody wants to hear the word cancer. I'm too young. I have years left to live. So how do we fix that? Here's the answer. 4 simple questions at the palm of your hand or in front of the computer screen in the privacy of your home, without the traffic, without the gas prices, without the judgmental white coat looking at you, without the admission of, yes, I'm still smoking. What of it? Right? How old are you? What gender are you? How many cigarettes have you smoked a day? How many years did you smoke? Did you quit? Did you have a history of cancer? Did you have exposures? 4 simple questions, right? We have accumulated 60 years of knowledge into 4 simple questions you can answer on your own. Does it work? Let's look at this. 22% of apps are dedicated to healthcare, right? 22%, that's more than anything else. This little watch I have on my hand, people have it. They use it. They want to. They want to take their health in their hands without the gas prices, without the traffic, right? Think about a motivated employees using your healthcare apps to be able to find out what they are available. And then the companies have the data collection, the analysis, improve the programs, the accessibility, the affordability. In the days of cost sharing, the more people uses things, the cheaper it gets, right? And then you have incentives and rewards. You can build programs. And then it goes in circles and circles. Why here? Look at this map. The darker the blue, the higher the cancer incidence. Look at where we are. Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, the tobacco belt, North Carolina. We have researchers all over this area willing, dying to jump on board, begging people, please get a CT scan. People just need to know how. At the end of those 4 questions, you get a phone number you can call. You can bypass all of us. And 78% of Americans are willing to do that. They've already answered the questions. They just need the technology. They need medicine to step out of the archaic ages and enter into technology age. It addresses the availability, the accessibility, the accommodation, the affordability, but most of all, it addresses the fact that you can face your fears in the comfort of your own living room, in the company of people that knows you, that cares about you, instead of shamefully sitting there listening to you should quit smoking, and inside your head said, I have cancer, and that's all you hear. You hear nothing else. Who benefits? Governments, health insurance, electronic health records. All of these entities are dying to just do something to help these people because financially it all makes sense. So what are we asking for? We're asking for a team to take this prototype and elevate it further and integrate it into the market in whatever form that can reach these people that we're trying to help. The investment it takes to build these things and the opportunity to sit down with all of those payers and say, hey, we have a solution for you. Come join us. Be part of the team that gives more years. happy to take any questions.
You can keep the microphone. I'll take your clicker. We'll give that a second to figure out what it's doing. All right. Does anybody have any questions for Hi? Yes, in the back.
I'm curious what the monetization plan is for the app.
Can you be a little bit more specific?
So my understanding was you have an app, there's a series of questions. They tell you basically if you should go get a CT scan or not. Do you pay when you download the app? How does the app make money?
No, so the way to generate money from the app is selling it to insurance company because they have an incentive to diagnose cancers early, right? The cost sharing is there. If you diagnose a cancer early, the amount of insurance payout is a lot less. The beneficiary, the actual consumers, are the hospital system. Because if you diagnose a cancer early and you can take it out, you bill for the procedure, which you get more money back than chemo radiation, which is not a CPT code. So it's a billing issue, right? And so the consumers are actually not the user. The consumers are all of the entity that I talked about, the government, the preventive health care, Medicare, Medicaid, cost sharing, all of that stuff.
Okay, thank you.
How accurate do you think the survey is?
These are actually the criteria that is published by the National Preventative Task Force and the National Cancer Guideline. So these are the questions that are derived from that. If you answer, there's an algorithm calculated. It's actually quite easy. Most primary care physicians don't have time. Most patients don't have primary care physician. But it just adds up the points, and then if there's certain points, then it's paid for. It's actually, the CT scan is actually paid for. Plug for CT scan, it's paid for. So you meet the criteria, go get screened. That's a physician in me talking.
Two more groups, and the next one, I'd like to give you some walk-up music, but here you go. Ben, right, with his jukebox app.
Hey. All right. So as you said, I'm Ben Barnett, and I created an application, a mobile app that lets the group share control of the music. So music streaming right now is a huge industry. It's got about 50 million, or Spotify alone has 50 million premium subscribers in the United States. And the only problem with Spotify and all of its competitors is that they focus on individual use of music. So currently, if you want to share a song, you have to either, if you're really old school, pass around the aux cord, or disconnect from Bluetooth, take a verbal request, things like that. It can be kind of a headache. So I have a question, has this ever happened to you, or maybe you're hanging out with a couple friends, I'll talk about later, you're in the car, something like that, and you want to play a song, but there's not really a good opening for you to interject and say, hey, like this song would be perfect for what's going on right now. Could you play it? Well, here's the solution. So the Jukebox app just works on anybody's phone. One person will have it downloaded and they'll be playing music through their phone. And then anybody else on their devices can request music and vote them up and down. And I think this is a good example of what not to play. But yeah, it's a good little party app and good music app. So as I mentioned before, this is one of the classic scenarios. Think about the last time you were in a car listening to music. One person probably had control of the music, probably the driver. So in this scenario, if you wanted to play another song, or if you wanted to share the music with the driver or the other people in the car, there's not really a good option that doesn't impede the driver from driving safely. So right now, what you could do is download the Jukebox app, and you can, again, request songs, vote them up and down, even control playback from other devices. So that's really cool. One of my favorite scenarios is if the person in charge of the music leaves the room, and someone doesn't like the song, or you just want to play what you want to play because, hey, they're not here anymore, So then you can actually, on your device, press a button and it will play the song on their device. So to me, that's pretty cool. With the Jukebox app, there's no more wondering what song this is. There's no more passing around the aux cord or disconnecting from Bluetooth. And most importantly, it's a lot more fun because you're no longer limited to being held captive to one person's taste in music. It's got a lot of different scenarios that it can be used in. This is, I'm guessing, a wedding. Looks like a really good time. But if you think about it, bonfires, road trips, small parties, raucous parties, family reunions, things like that. A lot of different use cases. So here it is again. It works on Amazon, Fire TV, Android, and iOS, and you can host on any device, and you can be a guest on any device listed. It also right now works with Spotify as the music source, and there's also a beta version for Apple Music, and there's a beta version for YouTube as well. So here's some key performance indicators. Since January, these are all since January, there's been a 50% conversion rate of from free trial to paid user. There's been an 80% retention rate of these paid users, 1,000% growth in sales since January, and a 200% ROI. I will also add that there are currently over 200 monthly active hosts and over 1,000 monthly users with, I think I'm approaching 400 active subscribers coming up in September when I get the numbers back. So this is probably the best thing that I could pull up is actual real people that have used this app. This is what they've been saying. The top one is an organic review on iTunes. And the next one is actually from Kyle, the guy who's been handing us all the microphones. He said he liked how seamless the Jukebox app was to use, and it worked a lot better than using just Spotify. So I'd encourage you, if you're interested, it requires Spotify Premium to host, but you don't need an account to be a guest. So if you know somebody with Premium, or if you have it yourself, I encourage you to check it out. Another one, actually two of my other favorite quotes. It lets the crowd choose the vibe, which I think is pretty accurate. And I'll never look at a party the same way again. So in conclusion, I'm looking for an EIR. I really want to take this from a standalone application and make it into a fully fledged business. I want to grow it in sales and revenue, and really kind of iron out all the other kinks that go into making a business and not just an application. And here's my contact info. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. You guys have to have questions about this. Anybody? Yes.
Okay.
Hi, very interesting idea. So right now, this is limited to Spotify Premium. Do you plan to expand to Apple Music or anything like that?
So the cool part is with what I have written, I can integrate with Apple Music pretty easily. I kind of don't want to alienate Spotify, because I have a good relationship with them so far, unlimited quota and all these little perks and stuff, So I'm kind of hopefully they're the acquisition partner, but I can spin it up for Apple Music in less than a month, I would say.
Cool.
So,
thank you.
Yep.
Yes. All right. Got a question in the back. David Zellen.
Have you done any marketing work behind this, or how have you attracted the users you have, and I guess tested ways of potentially scaling to get more users?
So, good question. I have not done any focused local marketing, but I have mostly advertised, and my mouth is getting a little dry here, I'm sorry. Mostly advertised in iTunes, the Apple App Store. And I've actually seen it be almost dollar for dollar return. So immediate return. So it cost me, less than $2 to get a new subscriber, but I make over $2 per month per subscriber. So the next month I make all my money back, basically. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
You should know those numbers, right?
It's $1.98 to get a subscriber, and I make $2.10. Actually now $2.51 per subscriber. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Is everything that I'm making from the application is going right back into marketing it, and the growth has been it's been a pretty good spike. So, yep.
Even since UC students have come back to campus, right?
Yep.
All right. Awesome. Yep. Maddie?
Thank you. Hi. Is there an automatic component to it? So would it generate any playlist or anything automatically?
So what it does is when you set up the party, you choose one of your playlists or a Spotify playlist, and it will clone what you choose into a new one, so you don't mess up your original. And then after that, every song that people choose or request gets added to the playlist. So at the end of the night, you can save the list or destroy it if you want to. I don't know, but yeah.
That's neat. Yeah, so you might be aware, but Spotify has a kind of a new thing where you and a friend, or maybe multiple friends.
Yeah, group feature.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a lot of feedback on that, and people just don't really like it all that much from what I've heard. So, and actually, if I could go back, that was kind of Kyle's point was they worked a lot better than Spotify's group feature because with the group feature, I don't know, it's kind of clunky and you can change the whole playlist if you do the wrong thing, With this, it's all one queue that everybody can see and kind of contribute to.
Okay, interesting. Thanks.
Thank you.
The group feature kind of like disconnects like random users at like random times. So like you could be in a group feature with like a bunch of friends and stuff, and like all of a sudden like everybody be like out of it. Like if you like are gone, it'll just like completely take you out of the group.
I've seen it where it kind of generates a playlist based on like stuff in the that might not be.
Yeah, I don't think there's one of those.
Sorry. Thank you, Kyle. I should probably get off stage now.
Okay. Thanks, Ben. It's really cool. Thank you. All right. Last but certainly not least, Callista Adkins with her business concept, Tallulah. I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Wrong one. Hello, my name is Callista Adkins. I am a recent University of Cincinnati industrial design graduate with a minor in business management, and Tallulah was my capstone project that I decided to pursue further. So I'd like you all to meet Megan. Prior to the pandemic, Megan liked to go outside with her dog. She liked to visit a lot of like local parks and stuff. And the pandemic hit and all of her life turned indoors. So she started working from home and looking at her surroundings and realizing that her home was very stagnant and didn't really inspire her. So she turned out to be one of the 7 out of 10 millennials who turned to plants after the pandemic and started integrating plants into her home. And it started with just one house plant, and then another, and then another, and then it overtook and took up most of her horizontal spaces in her home. So she looked for a solution that put those plants on vertical spaces to get some of her horizontal spaces back. And she bought these buckets you see that are just at Lowe's as like a fast solution that she found, although she didn't really like how they looked. So she looked to the market to see if there was any other option out there that was maybe looked a little cooler, was more of a long-term solution. And there was nothing really that fell into this lower cost, but more aesthetically pleasing section. So that's where Tallulah would come in. So the current houseplant market is about a $15 billion market, and millennials make up $10 billion of that. This can be plant lovers or new plant owners or people who just want greenery in their home. And what do all those people have in common? They all need something to keep their plants in. So plant pots make up about $1 billion of that. So going into designing this, I knew it had to be modular. It had multiple to fit on a wall. It had to be customizable. You had to be able to change out what plants were in it. And it had to be safe for multiple different types of plants. Easy to use. Aesthetically, it had to look like nothing else on the market. And it had to have a support system through a blog and a website for those new plant parents, as well as those experienced plant parents. So this is the design after many iterations that I came up with. It's this diamond shape. Currently has a vacuum formed base with a wooden frame. Has 4 spots for plants. The top is flat for a lighting attachment if needed. Internally, all these pots wick to a water reservoir that lets through capillary action, lets the plants, take water as they need it. And the back, there is a hanging mechanism so it can be hung on a wall. So I took this design out to 101 people just like Megan, and 97% of them wanted to buy one. They all enjoyed that it held more than one plant, and they enjoyed that they could remove the plant pots from it for easier watering. And everyone was excited about it, but one of these points that bugged me was that only 43% believed it fit with their current decor. So as a designer, that bothered me. And I took my design and I went back to the drawing board a little bit, and I came up with a couple different options. So a darker frame with a ceramic front, some lighter options. That one in the middle is all black. It is not purple, as well as a DIY option that they could paint to whatever color that they saw fit. And out of those options, the all black and the DIY is what won out amongst customers. The DIY, they could paint the same color as their wall to make it look like a sculpture that was actually coming out of their wall, which was really cool. And so where am I at today? This is my current prototype. One issue with these prototypes is the front face and how it's made. That is kind of what I need help with, is what that face composition is made out of, to make it watertight, to fix the tolerances on it a little bit, because I had a little bit of buckling that you can see in that photo. And then, like I had mentioned, this was my capstone project. I won Most Sustainable DAppWorks Award. And I like to call these prototypes like my 80% final, because I'm still trying to figure out that front face composition. And then once I figure that out, going into how that works in small batch and mass production, team building, because currently it is just me, building a socially responsible business that gives back to nonprofits, as well as app development for the support system, marketing, and packaging to consumers, which would all lead to a small batch product launch. And then here's QR code to give me feedback if you are so inclined, my LinkedIn. And if you would like to see more of the design aspect, some of my sketches and what my research that led up to it, the bottom right QR code is my Behance project. So thank you.
Beautiful. Okay, thanks, Callista. Does anybody have any questions for her? Yes.
Yeah, so I know you said you were mainly kind of marketing this toward millennial plant lovers, but at the end I saw you kind of mention giving back to nonprofits. So I was kind of specifically more asking, have you ever thought about pushing that? I know there's organizations, specifically one called Orchard Africa, that are really trying to push this kind of vertical gardening in kind of post-apartheid communities down there, just because they have very limited space and they are trying to kind of grow more food on their own. So have you ever thought about kind of pushing that idea towards organizations such as that?
Yeah, absolutely. Initially, I had done some research on some of the nonprofits that I would sponsor like quarterly. But, it is a big part of my plan if I go through with this to give back to nonprofits, and that could just be one of the nonprofits that I work with. Yeah.
So have you sold any of these?
I have not, but I've gotten a lot of people that want to buy one. I'm trying to figure out that front faceplate. That's one of my big struggles right now, is how to make that to a point where I feel comfortable selling it. Because right now the prototypes, they work for prototypes, but I'm trying to get it to like a manufactured state. So, yes.
Do you have a way to take pre-orders?
So on my website, I have kind of like a subscription blog almost that's happening. So you can like put in your email there, but I don't have a pre-order system yet, just because, again, I hadn't figured out the front face yet. So, yeah, I've gathered a few emails on my website for people to like reach out to, as well as on my Instagram. I've been directing people there just so I have like a group of people that when if I, get to a small batch product launch, people to reach out to for that. Yeah.
What was the inspiration for
So it was a combination of a bunch of different languages, meaning like 3 and Warrior, and I can't remember what the last one was, but it was a bunch of different languages and just kind of came together. The name took a long time to brainstorm. There was a bunch of different names previously. Part of it is 3, and as you see, there's 3 different models there because it's a level 1, 2, and 3, being a 4-inch pot to a 6-inch pot to a propagation station. So that was part of it as well. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Calista. All right, so that's it. We made it all the way through. Thank you so much for coming and supporting all of our teams. Thank you for the teams and all of your hard work over these last 8 weeks and everything you've done before that and everything that I hope you do after, and that I can be of help to you and Dave also with our accelerator.